The census hiring gimmicks. The government claims to be hiring 600,000 workers for the census. Why? When most Americans are filling out their census forms and mailing them back in? Most of these workers, whatever the true total is, will be part-time, working only a few hours a week. But they will be counted as full-time employees and used to overstate employment and understate unemployment until about September. In late May, 2 census workers blew the whistle on the Obama census worker scam. Naomi Cohn told the New York Post that she was hired and fired a number of times by the Census Bureau. Each time she was hired back, Census was able to report the creation of a new job to the Labor Department. Another census worker from Manhattan told the Post that he was on his 4th rehire with the 2010 census. I have been hired, trained for a week, given a few hours of work, then laid off. So my unemployed self now counts for 4 new jobs. I have been paid more to train all 4 times than I have been paid to actually produce results. These are yours and my tax dollars at work. A few months ago I was trained for 3 days and offered 5 hours of work counting the homeless. Now I am knocking on doors trying to find people who have not mailed in their census forms. I have to run now and meet my new leader, even though with this rain I did not work today. So I am put on a pay sheet for the hour and a half this meeting will take. And here's another. I worked for Census and I was paid $18.75 an hour. I worked for about 6 weeks. I was checking the work of others. While I was classifying addresses, another junior supervisor was checking my work. In short, we had a checker checking checkers. Quality control. I was eventually let go and was told all the work was finished when in fact other people were being trained for the same assignments. Yeah. Real good. U.S. companies are permanently cutting millions out of jobs and or outsourcing them abroad. Over the past decade or so, over 10 million jobs have permanently left the U.S. in manufacturing and service industries. Bank of America has outsourced 20,000 jobs in Mumbai and New Delhi, India, to serve their huge mortgage business, which they acquired when Countrywide Mortgages went under. Bank of America pays these workers 90% less than U.S. wages, and the Indian workers are very happy to have the work at 10% of U.S. wages. Those jobs will never return to America. In Manila, call centers employ 1 million Filipinos for companies such as United Airlines, large U.S. insurance companies, banks, stock brokerage firms, etc. That is 1 million former U.S. jobs that will never return to America. Your friendly Delta Airlines reservation agent is in Pune, India. The state of California, the U.S. Defense Department, and dozens of other state and federal agencies outsource hundreds of thousands of jobs abroad in order to save money. The Fortune 500 largest U.S. companies slashed a record 821,000 jobs last year, even as their collective profits soared more than threefold. Some of those jobs will be permanently eliminated, but many are being outsourced abroad. Hewlett-Packard announced on June 1st that it will cut 9,000 jobs as it creates fully automated commercial data centers. For a classic example of how large U.S. corporations are abandoning U.S., consider IBM. On April 28th, IBM told Personnel Today that the firm's global workforce of 399,000 permanent employees would be reduced to 100,000 by 2017. IBM's U.S. workforce was 133,799 in 2005, 121,000 in 2007, and 98,000 in 2010. Multinational firms like IBM, saddled with huge people wage benefit costs, are downsizing their permanent workforces and hiring foreign subcontractors on a project-by-project basis on a scale never before seen. U.S. manufacturers are moving whole factories and development centers to China, India, or elsewhere in Asia. E.g., Applied Materials is planning to replace their U.S. research center for a new one in China. This may be good for IBM, the U.S. multinationals in China, but is terrible for U.S. jobs, income, standard of living, and the long-term economic strength of the U.S. Tens of millions of manufacturing and service jobs are permanently leaving this country and will never return. This cannot be good for America. But it's not just large companies that are cutting jobs. April marked the 27th consecutive month in which small businesses cut more or the same number of jobs than they added. According to the National Federation of Independent Businesses, small businesses in America have steadily cut more jobs than at any time in the NFIB's 35-year history. Small business owners have told the NFIB that they intend to continue to cut their payrolls. It should be remembered that small businesses employ even more workers than the multinationals. Small business hurting. The so-called recovery, indeed a jobless recovery, eluded small business in America, which account for over 80% of U.S. business activity. Small business entrepreneurs and two recent surveys indicated that economic conditions for their businesses are deteriorating, that sales are declining, that they are not hiring, and in fact they are laying off more workers and are becoming even more pessimistic about future business prospects. As with the 26 million unemployed Americans, small business owners see no recovery. None of the trillions of dollars in bailout funds, which mainly went mainly to Wall Street and the big banks, have trickled down to Main Street America, where the recession, or depression if you want to call it, is still well entrenched. Higher taxes and growing government regulations and controls are also strangling small businesses, which have no incentive to expand and take entrepreneurial risks. And that is before the impact of the national health care fiasco. How do you spell socialism? In California, small businessmen say they are curtailing plans for hiring and expansion because of huge rises in health insurance costs, up 23%. Dun & Bradstreet states that there are 36,000 businesses at high risk of failure in the next 12 months, and in late May downgraded the risk profiles of 80,000 firms. It is axiomatic: when small business is in trouble in America, the entire economy is in trouble. Okay. The U.S. debit deficit explosion. In April, the U.S. posted an $82.69 billion budget deficit, 4 times the 20.91 deficit in April 2009, and the largest ever for the month of April, a tax month when most of the U.S. tax revenue comes in. As of June 1st, the U.S. national debt was above $13 trillion, up $185 trillion over the past 12 months. This is the real budget deficit. The Obama administration used accounting gimmicks to understate the 2009 budget deficit by almost $400 billion, and will do likewise again in 2010. In February, the U.S. ran the biggest one-month deficit in history, $221 billion. It took America 169 years to amass a deficit that large. Obama did it in just 28 days. By year-end 2010, the national debt could reach $14 trillion. Nominal U.S. GDP for Q1 is $14.6 trillion. By next year, U.S. debt to GDP ratio will be above 100%. Indeed, if you add the U.S. national debt and debts of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, GM, and all the other financial holes the U.S. government will look to fill, the total debt is probably already 120% of GDP, almost the same as Greece's debt. If the economy turns back into recession, the 2010 budget deficit is likely to exceed $2 trillion. In the past 2 years, America's gross debt has grown by 38.1%, or by $3.57 trillion. America's national debt condition is as bad as the worst in Europe's, percentage-wise, only much larger in total dollars. The smartest financial minds in the world know that it's a matter of time until there is a European-style run on the U.S. dollar. As Bill King wrote on May 12, 2010, The astounding April budget deficit demonstrates that the U.S. is on the same road to financial perdition that most of Europe is traveling. To put it all in perspective, there are now about as many people relying on the U.S. government for food stamps as the entire population of Spain. There are about as many people unemployed in the U.S. as the entire population of Greece, Portugal, and Ireland combined. So if you're worried about the pig's sovereign debt crisis, you should be even more worried about America's looming sovereign debt crisis.